television event.
Francophone. You go to the SADC region, majority are Anglophone. You go to, I'm not talking about our own local languages, and you go to Central Africa, many Francophone, the North Francophone Arab. So ECOWAS had a very big challenge, bringing all, these different political experiences, colonial experiences together. And as Dr. Kayode, said earlier on, visionary military leaders like His Excellency Yakubu Gowon, General Yakubu Gowon of Nigeria, convincing His Excellency General Iyadema of Togo to be the two linchpins for bringing together all the African leaders to create this organization was itself a major success. And many have argued that ECOWAS was created as an economic integration body. So why is it delving into politics and others' internal affairs? That argument ignores history. In that at the height of the Cold War, with ideological differences and then proxy influences on the continent, it was practically impossible, to create an organization based on common political values, like democracy and others. So it was the epoch that determined the character of ECOWAS. That was the first period. The second period coincided with the, I will not, say the end of the Cold War, but the rise of the peoples of Africa, citizens of Africa, against military dictatorship, autocracy, and, all manner of, the insidious government forms on the continent in general, and West Africa in particular, which led, in part, to the era of neoliberalism that we have known up until about, maybe 2020. And it also coincided with the threat of breakup of our entire region being sparked by the civil wars in Liberia and Liberia, Sierra Leone, later on moving on to Cote d'Ivoire and others. That period was a period that ECOWAS also stood at the crossroads. ECOWAS could have folded its arms and allowed Liberia to degenerate into civil war, spread across West Africa, everybody for themselves. But ECOWAS stood up to the challenge and made sure we stabilized the region. And that experience actually led, and it was something that His Excellency Mohamed Ibn Chambed, in his role as the then Executive Secretary of ECOWAS and later President, championed all the normative frameworks in democracy, human rights, and others were crafted as a result of the experiences of the civil wars. Whether you are talking about the Declaration of Political Principles, the mechanism, protocol related to the mechanism for conflict prevention and others, and the supplementary protocol on democracy and good governance. These were all born out of cognitive experience that the region went through. And we've, ECOWAS have done a lot in the field of security, in economic integration, first and foremost, and in democratic consolidation since the end of those civil wars. Today, ECOWAS stands again at the crossroads. This is the third juncture, where events are being shaped by global shifts and also internal dynamics. It was a very famous liberation, fighter in West Africa, Amilcar Cabral, who just said a phrase made up of 4 words at Kwame Nkrumah's funeral in Ghana. Because when we know, that whatever the global environment, the spark to disintegration or progress very much depends upon the choices that nations make. So when people were talking about it was imperialism that killed Kwame Nkrumah, he said that might be true, but rice cooks in the pot. Rice cooks in the pot, meaning that without the traitors on the continent, in Ghana, I don't think imperialism could have succeeded. This is where West Africa finds itself within the global, that we are now. I would dare to say that the world today is in a return to the Cold War, but it is between the Cold War and a hot war. We are actually in the warm war period. This is what is happening. All the characteristics of the Cold War are there, that you can identify globally. It is about bloc competition, whether you are talking about the NATO alliance plus G7, you are talking about the BRICS, and also their allies. Yeah, please. What is different today, is that countries have choices. Countries have choices. It is just not a very clear-cut development in the world, and that there are countries that could be in NATO, G7, or BRICS, or their allies, who cannot be seriously said they belong to this bloc or the other, and that countries choose what they want to do through their own values, their interests, and also the power that exists, whether what is a soft or hard power. This is where we are today. The world is multivectoral, not just multipolar. Within the poles, there are also vectors that are there, and this is what the world is. But what is its impact on West Africa, and how do we get out of it, I think is the main purpose of this meeting today. I would argue that we have a crisis of security, and then we have a crisis of democracy in West Africa today. And I think our discussion will have to, sort of navigate between, this. A lot has been said about terrorism, violent extremism, and others, and I'm not going to belabor it. Democracy is also, in crisis. It's in crisis today in West Africa, and it doesn't seem like leaders have learned their lesson. Today's popular method of state capture is by member states eliminating dangerous opponents, whether political parties or candidates, from the electoral process. I mean, that is the latest fashion, on the in West Africa and others, so that hollowing out the very essence of competitiveness when it comes to that. And that was one of the reasons the 3 member states in ECOWAS, decided to leave. It was one of the reasons. The other was insecurity. And as Dr. Faraday also said, insecurity has only worsened, since then. So where do we go, from here? And I think those are the critical question. ECOWAS, therefore, decided to start a series of introspection, which are ongoing now. We've had a whole lot across the whole integration, framework of ECOWAS. It is citizens-led, and the outcome of all deliberations will end up in a pact, a draft pact, that will determine the path that ECOWAS will take in the next 50 years to come. Those discussions are ongoing now, and I think this public square is one, of them. I want, because of the preponderance of citizens here, I would like to say that ECOWAS has always been a very good friend of citizens, of civil society. Beginning, with our facilitation of the creation of the West Africa Civil Society Forum, our partnership with ONEP, and a whole lot of other CDD, all across Africa. And today, citizens are being called upon again, to rise up to the challenge. I will say, those who criticize ECOWAS, that ECOWAS is in crisis. It's not because ECOWAS is actually in crisis, but ECOWAS is the most talked about regional organization, not only in Africa, but globally, for better or for worse. And that is where we are. We need to continue with, that leadership. And for us gathered here, citizens will have to determine which path we go, whether we are going to go military dictatorship or a people-centered democratic, practice that will respond to the needs of our populations as, we are today. And Frantz Fanon's, famous, quote also comes to mind today. This is a generation, this is a new generation. We have to discover our mission. Discover our mission, either to fulfill it or to betray it. I hope for, for us to fulfill that mission. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for Dr. Musa again. I was moving close to Musa, close to him, but he wasn't just looking at my side. Can you put your hands together for him again? Musa has given us the evolution of ECOWAS and the fact that there are global shifts and internal dynamics, and the context of crisis of democracy and insecurity, and our citizens have a lot of role to determine. That takes us to the end of the opening ceremony, but we'll request our guest to just come forward for the group photograph quickly, and after the group photograph, yes, you can move now, sir, Almas. Just come to the front for a group photograph, and we will be moving quickly to the African Public Square debate. As our guests are moving to the front for the group photograph quickly, we'll be moving to the African Public Square debate. And it's my pleasure to invite my co-director, Dr. Kadi Diop, to direct the next section. Please put your hands together for her.
m'écoutez? Ça passe pas? C'est bon? C'est bon maintenant? OK. Alors, mesdames et messieurs, nous entrons maintenant dans le vif du sujet avec le débat African Public Square qui portera sur le thème central « Assurer l'avenir de l'intégration régionale en Afrique ». Ce thème est particulièrement d'actualité car la CEDEAO célèbre cette année 50 ans d'existence. C'est donc l'occasion de faire le point sur le chemin parcouru, mais aussi de regarder vers l'avenir. Comment faire en sorte
we have to make sure that regional integration should respond to the aspirations of the African people. And it is around that thematic that we have fundamental questions, namely, regional organizations, are they still indispensable to African integration? What real needs should guide the future of ECOWAS of peoples? And of course, regional integration, can it be successful without economic community or solid economic foundation? These interrogations are not just theoretical. It helps us to brainstorm together, discuss, and propose a concrete solution. We have the concept of African public square, and for that I'm going to ask Madame Chouvai, Executive Secretary of the African Leadership Center, to come and join me on the podium. Please, you have the floor. Thank you, Kadi.
Everyone, my name is Chouvai Bousmane-Nyoni, as Kadi has said, and I am the Executive Director of the African Leadership Center. My role here for just the next few minutes is to talk to you about the African Public Square and to introduce it to you. And to introduce to you the open debate that we are going to be having this morning. If I could ask, please, our debaters to join one of our fellow debaters who's already on the stage. If I could ask you to please come and join us on the stage, our debaters. All of you, yes, please. Yes, you will take your seats here on the stage. As they come to the stage, as I said, I'm here to introduce the African Public Square. The African Public Square was established by the African Leadership Center in 2023 as a platform to harness Africa's intellectual power and intergenerational agency. But before its launch and it's being established, the African Public Square, and I think the most important thing about it is that it is an idea. At the African Leadership Center, we are a center of ideas, and ideas expressed through people, many people who you will see in the room today in the person of our alumni community. And I think Professor Fumi has already spoken quite a bit about them. And we're very excited to be celebrating the 15th anniversary of the African Leadership Center and IDEA together with you here at the ECOWAS Commission and in Abuja in Nigeria. I will tell you, thank you. Thank you. I just want to tell you what the APS, as we affectionately call it, aims to do. The APS aims to speak back to established agendas in the global landscape that place Africa at a disadvantage. It also offers new solutions and proposals for re-energizing Africa's normative and response framework with possibilities for Africa's renewal. It aims to also expand the constituency of actors that speak for Africa when the spaces for engaging stakeholders you've already heard that we have as citizens with our regional organizations. The APS also offers a three-part intervention to raise Africa's position in the world. The first is a convening platform to convene new and established voices, constituting an intergenerational community of African public intellectuals, catalyzing the repositioning of Africa in the global order. It is also an annual high-level continental forum, an African global public debate, bringing together prominent intellectuals along with a variety of interlocutors to frame and propose an alternative framework of engagement on issues of the day shaping Africa's trajectory. It's an intergenerational community of African public intellectuals in co-leadership of special interventions that propose new ideas and forms of collaboration for responding to Africa's challenges and reshaping global engagement to raise Africa's position in the world. I will shortly invite our moderator, who will be taking us through our debate today. But I just want to let you know that our debate is televised, it is live, and we will be beamed on channels, television, and other media outlets throughout the duration of the debate. As I said, our debate will be moderated by the esteemed Lara Owe-Wise, who is an award-winning journalist, a media practitioner, and public relations specialist. And she's also a commentator on contemporary affairs. So Lara, I hand over to you. Welcome, please, to the stage to take us on with our debate. Thank you so much.
Good morning, great sons and daughters of Africa from every corner of our continent and everyone from the diaspora. Welcome to the African Public Square Open Debate, where bold voices meet big ideas and the future of our region takes the center stage. So let's open the floor and open our minds as we chart the path to a future-proof ECOWAS built by the people for the people. Yes, my name is Lara Owe-Wise, and it's my honor and privilege to run the open debate in the next 2 hours. I want to let everybody know that we're live on TV, so smile for the camera. Right, I want to warmly invite Professor Fumi Oloni Shaki to the podium. She was here earlier, but I wanted to come back and frame the debate and outline the ground rules for the APS open debate. Please put your hands together for her as she makes her way up here.
Thank you very, very much, Lara. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I think we heard the beginning of the framing of this debate through the various opening statements this morning. Now, having heard what we heard earlier, let's be clear. The question before us is this: are regional organizations a necessity for regional integration? That is, do you need regional organizations in order to actually achieve regional integration? The fact that regional integration has become a story of two worlds, the world of peoples and the world of states, means that there's some justification for framing this question, because you could have heard what ECOWAS is about. You would also have heard what other regional organizations are about, the continental organization as well, the African Union. If they're not about regional integration, what are they about? But here's the reason why we think this question is worth posing. It's not just a provocative question. It's worth posing because we see the tensions in the direction of travel of states and the direction of travel of peoples. Just a few examples. Porosity of borders is a necessity for African peoples. West African peoples are not an exception. If the border is porous, they move back and forth across the borders, but it always seems a threat to the state. The state desperately wants to control borders. But then we have freedom of movement of peoples and goods in West Africa, don't we? Does that actually mean that the states, when they're dealing with external partners, are not inclined to close those borders, control them, so that it works against the very logic of the ECOWAS of peoples? Let's consider that. Secondly, West Africa has this teeming, emerging youth leaders, teeming youth population. And the way they organize, their organizing logic, their interactions, you see an increasing prevalence of digital interaction. But yet, those of us who teach them, who operate the bureaucratic spaces, the governance spaces, are very analog in the way that we deal with them. That is an issue to think about. There's a tension there. Thirdly, again, in their organizing formula, peoples of West Africa, actually young people across the continent of Africa and in other regions of the world, but in West Africa, they veer towards building movements. They veer towards seamless organizing. And yet states remain in an extreme bureaucratic logic. So, point is, as African people continue to drive and pursue integration agenda, and we heard earlier that actually the state's integration agenda really is reinforced, it's the people's integration drive that really motivates the state to do that. Is that the case? Having given these examples, we're seeing a tension in everyday life, which causes us to frame the question we have framed. So here are the ground rules. Lara, you'll be pleased to know I'll do this in less than 2 minutes. Lead debaters, keynote debaters. We have two. The first is Professor Batili, who will be introduced. The second is Dr. Titilope Ajayi. They will speak for 6 minutes each, for and against the motion, if you like. They will speak in relation to this question, for regional organizations or for peoples, as it were. Each supporting debater, the other 4 debaters, will offer their responses, taking their stance for 3 minutes only. Thereafter, this debate will be open to contributors from the floor. Contributors from the floor will have their names on a speaker's list. Somebody will go around if you want to contribute. A speaker's list will be opened for a set period of time and then closed. You will see the person taking the list around the room. The fact that your name is on this list does not necessarily mean that you get to speak, but it will be orderly. You will speak according to where your name is on the list. Speakers from the floor will therefore speak for 1 minute only, and this will be strictly observed. When you speak for 1 minute only, you will not address questions to any of the speakers. This is not a question and answer session. What we ask of you is that you participate. Don't be a spectator. Don't be someone who's throwing questions at those people because you don't have a responsibility to offer a solution as well. So, speakers from the floor will contribute to the debate by offering a new fact. That's number 1. Offer a new fact in your 1 minute. Or by supporting or opposing a position that has already been articulated by the speakers. If you're supporting it, say so and say why in your 1 minute, please. Or you could be offering a new perspective on the key issues raised in the debate so far. Please don't speak for long periods. State the fact, and you don't have to speak if you don't have anything to say. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lara.
Madam, thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you for sticking to time. One of the things I plan to do today is to stick to time. We have a limited number of hours to do the live broadcast we're doing, so we'll try as much as possible to maximize the time, and everybody will use the time allotted to them. Right, so we're going straight into the first segment of this debate. And the question is, are regional organizations a necessity for regional integration? We already have heard the ground rules, and I hope we'll stick by them. Let me invite His Excellency Professor Abdoulaye Bathily, the Special Envoy of the President of the Republic of Senegal for International Affairs and former member of ECOWAS Parliament, to come to the podium. He's arguing that regional organizations are necessary for regional integration. Please put your hands together for him as he makes his way here. Let me let His Excellency know that he has 6 minutes and your time starts now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's really a challenge for a professor to say for 6 months, 6 minutes on this topic. And in addition to that, a former member of ECOWAS Parliament, I remember 25 years ago sitting in this row. Regional integrations are necessary and indispensable enablers for regional integration. Regional integration is rooted in the history of West Africa, in the history of Africa. Thousands of years of history. Professor Ajayi, who has been quoted earlier on, has demonstrated this. My good friend and colleague, Asiwaju, Professor Asiwaju, Professor Diko, late Diko Onukua, Trade and Politics in Niger Delta, the history of ancient kingdoms and empire of Ghana and Mali, with Songhai, Kanem Bornu, shows that regional integration by empires and states has always been part of African history. Today, we are facing a number of challenges which make regional integration a must through regional organization. It is through regional organizations what we can organize infrastructures, roads, highways, air transports. This is through which the people can move across regions of a continent. Not one country can do it alone, and individuals cannot do this alone. Industry is today necessary for the transformation of raw materials, natural resources of Africa, to provide jobs for the 70% of African population who need to be integrated in the process of modern economy. Agriculture for food production. Regional organization can, through cooperation, organize food production system better on our continent. The free movement of people and goods and services to give their playing capacity has to be organized by the states and sponsored by the states through mechanisms which are reliable. This is why regional organizations through administrative, parliaments, legislative bodies can further regional integration. Security is today indispensable for regional integration to give its full capacity. We see today how, for the lack of insecurity, at sub-regional level, we are faced with the disruptions of the ECOWAS of the people. Regional organizations are necessary to be a vehicle for the voice of Africa in the world as it is today. Africa's voice needed to be heard for the economy, for politics, for culture. Our people have been trampled upon down for centuries, slavery, colonialism. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I think as enablers of regional integrations, regional organizations are necessary and indispensable. This is my position. Thank you very much.
5432. That was brilliant, Prof, and thank you very much for sticking to time. You gave me 45 seconds extra. Thank you very much indeed. So basically, Prof has made us understand that regional integration has always been an African thing and has been part of our history. But Dr. Titilope Ajayi does not think so. I'm going to bring him up here. And his position is very simple. He argues that regional organizations are not necessary, are not a necessity for regional integration. After all, West African peoples have driven regional integration where ECOWAS has stalled integration efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as I bring to the podium Dr. Titilope Ajayi from the Institute for Security Studies Africa, ISS Africa. She also has 6 minutes. Thank you. Your time starts now.
Thank you. I have titled my intervention, When the Roof Outgrows the House, Rethinking the Need for Regional Organizations in African Integration. Are regional organizations necessary for regional integration in Africa? My argument is simple. They are not. Regional organizations once symbolized collective aspirations, but over time, the roof has outgrown the house. The institutions have expanded while the foundations of trust, mobility, and cooperation among citizens have been neglected. Integration did not begin with bureaucracies, and it will not end without them. In fact, the continent's most enduring connections have rarely been contingent upon the Secretariat's sanction. 3 snapshots of lived experience will show what happens when institutional regionalism drifts too far from the realities it claims to represent. Story 1. Just last month, an ECOWAS member landing in Praia, Cabo Verde, spent 2 hours at immigration. Responding to her question about why Caucasian travelers were being fast-tracked through an empty line, officers said, "Your passport does not pass here." What failed here was not the idea of regional belonging. It was the institution's ability to recognize it. Story 2, July, also this year. Protesters in Accra, Ghana carried signs reading, "Nigerians must go." Their anger was not aimed at neighbors alone, but at a regional system that speaks of free movement while ignoring how unevenly it plays out on the ground. Institutions may have claimed the language of integration, but not its social foundations. Story 3, years ago, a delegation traveling between ECOWAS countries was stopped at a border post. Their passports and clearances were in order, yet they were told to pay a fixed amount per person to proceed. One delegate protested, asking about ECOWAS free movement protocol. The officer said, and I quote, "La CEDEAO, c'est là-bas."
ECOWAS is there. Here is the border.
Your ECOWAS, at this border you will do as we say. These stories reveal a deeper truth. Integration exists, but institutions are struggling to keep pace. Long before ECOWAS or SADC or any of the other acronyms that we like to bandy about, Africans have traded, as the previous speaker said, migrated, and built networks that ignored colonial borders. We have been integrating long before politicians began creating infrastructures around this. Our modern organizations were meant to formalize this reality, but instead they have often frozen it. We have built bureaucracies that manage the idea of integration more than they enable its practice. Africa now boasts 8 recognized regional communities, dozens of frameworks, multiple overlaps in membership and mandates. But these structures have produced coordination fatigue and chaos, not cohesion. Integration has become a paper exercise, producing thick reports, hundreds of meetings, and thin results. Afrobarometer data shows that half of Africans trust regional organizations, and only 1 in 4 finds it easy to cross a border. This is not rejection, it is irrelevance. Our regional bodies remain hostages to the states that create them. They cannot transcend politics when their funding and legitimacy depend on the goodwill of heads of state and government, and to a large extent, funders. The same organizations that sign free movement protocols close borders overnight when it suits them. No names mentioned. Worse, this selective obedience extends to policy frameworks on governance and democracy. Leaders ratify charters against corruption and unconstitutional changes of government, and then violate them with impunity. When this happens, responses are inconsistent. Condemnation in one country against quiet accommodation in another. We have seen this play out time and again, and we are seeing it play out now in Cameroon and in Tanzania, and we have one eye on Côte d'Ivoire. This chronic non-compliance hollows out credibility and turns regionalism into a stage for power and not principle. Every crisis exposes the same pattern. Institutions act only when it is politically conducive, not when it is regionally necessary. Yet integration continues, quietly, creatively, and without permission. Traders, migrants, and entrepreneurs link cities faster than ministries. Pastoralists and digital startups connect economies beyond formal regulation. Women's groups have historically brokered peace across the continent. They continue to do so where diplomacy has faltered. This is integration from below. It is organic, informal, and self-organizing. Messy, but real. Africa's capacity for connection lies not in its institutions, but in the interaction of its diverse peoples. We often hear that security is the one area where regional organizations are indispensable. But even here, the evidence falters. ECOWAS once symbolized regional defense. Today, that center no longer holds as firm. So if regionalism fails, what is the future? The answer is already unfolding in the networks of people and places who already do across borders what our regional institutions only debate on paper. The late Ama Ata Edu once said, "We keep trying to build houses from the roof down." This is what we have done with African regionalism. We built the roof first, mistaking institutions for the house itself. But the house, which is the real work of integration, never stopped being built. It has found foundations in the movements, exchanges, and solidarities of ordinary Africans. Regional organizations were never the house that was meant to protect it. Once useful, but now ill-fitting and part. Our integration survives because the foundations are alive in people and not protocols. And whether that roof ever fits again or not, the house stands, especially in the evolving regional and global order. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Ajayi, for your contribution. And basically, regional organizations are not a necessity for regional integration. All right, so let me quickly run through the ground rules again as we progress to move to the supporting arguments. So basically, the lead debaters are done. They've taken their six minutes. Each supporting debater or respondent will offer their responses for just 3 minutes only. Thereafter, the debate will be open to contributors from the floor. A special list will be open for a set period and then closed. So if you have been asked to join the debate, your name will be on the speaker's list. I have the list already. But subsequently, the microphone will be passed around. And if you want to make your contribution, then you signify with the raise of a hand. Speakers from the floor will not address questions to any of the prior speakers. Rather, they will contribute to the debate by offering a new fact, supporting or opposing a position that has been articulated with clear reasons for doing so, or offering a new perspective on the key issues raised in the debate so far. So let's be clear about that as we move to our supporting debaters. Dr. Babatunde Afolabi and Dr. Faisal Garba Mohammed are going to present supporting cases for the position taken by His Excellency Professor Batili and Dr. Titilope Ajayi by responding to the question, can you have regional integration without political community? Let me warmly, he's here already, Dr. Afolabi to the podium. He has 3 minutes. Thank you. Please put your hands together for him.
It's good to be here, Excellencies, mentors, and friends. I wish I could take the 45 seconds that the professor had left. I hope that will be the case. Okay, yeah, very quickly. I wanted to establish a few truths or posit a few points, and then go quickly to examples of the utility of ECOWAS or regional institutions. First, to stress that the primacy and centrality of the Westphalian state as the building block of international systems is sacrosanct. States are the building blocks in the international system. States are the building blocks for regional organizations, and states cannot function without rules, without institutions, without norms. I wanted to, highlight that very quickly. And I also wanted to, with time permitting, share a few examples, concrete examples of ECOWAS's utility over the past 5 decades, and for you, the audience, to reflect on whether this achievement would have been possible outside of the framework of a formal regional institution. Firstly, the ECOWAS-free movement of goods and persons, the protocol, which establishes that, and which of course means that every ECOWAS member state citizen can work and undertake trading activities and also undertake visa-free travels across the sub-region. I think it is clear, obvious, that this would be impossible without, the framework of a formal institution. Let's also go back, of course, as had been alluded earlier, to the several peacemaking and peacekeeping interventions that have been undertaken since 1990, when that unfortunate civil war broke out in Liberia, and which of course led to our heads of states coming together under the auspices of ECOWAS to stem the tide of that violent conflict. And of course, beyond Liberia, I don't need to go into all the details, but where history is replete with, the various interventions in Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau, Cote d'Ivoire, when it comes to core peacekeeping. And then, of course, several high-level political interventions in places like Togo, Guinea, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, and Cote d'Ivoire in recent history when it comes to peacemaking interventions. If time permits, the huge infrastructural projects across the sub-region on transport, energy, water, telecommunications, and very concretely to highlight the Abuja-Lagos Corridor Highway. These are living examples of why you need an institutionalized, regional arrangements. Time will not permit me to talk about the institutions such as the ECOWAS Court of Justice, the Parliament, and specialized agencies. Let me conclude. I like Dr. Ajayi's stories about the non-utility or non-importance of the regional arrangements. But I'm reminded that Dr. Ajayi actually lives in Ghana, is Nigerian, studied in Ghana, and actually arrived here yesterday, visa-free. So I wonder whether that would... Thank you very much.
Dr. Ajayi, I'm sure you want to respond to that, but there's no time. We'll probably do that off camera, maybe after the show. Thank you very much. Right, so we want to thank you, Dr. Afolabi, for your invaluable contribution, and thank you for sticking to time. You actually used up the extra 45 minutes that so it's okay. Dr. Faisal Garba Mohammed will come here to argue that, on the contrary, West African people have been key facilitators of political community in West Africa, while regional organizations have hindered the progress toward a political community. Dr. Faisal Garba Mohammed, let's put our hands together for him as he makes his way here and uses up his 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thought I would begin by contrasting us with a very popular staple in this part of the world, just to illustrate the point. That you see, human beings, we are not exactly like yam, you see. We do not grow out of any soil. Wherever you find people, they are there because they moved there. Now, this in a sense captures the making and the production of the political community in West Africa, which is largely captured as a migration and mobility confluence. You see, that history has produced a far-flung political community, but also a livelihood structure and a cosmopolitan outlook that pushes back and challenges the colonial statecraft, which fuses identity to place and therefore reifies tribalism. And to illustrate this again, I thought I should go back to history to a very famous saying among the Dogons of present-day Mali in the 1930s. And this saying might be useful to those of us who go to church on Sunday, but also those of us who go to church, to a mosque today. And the saying goes as follows, that you will not go to heaven if you have never been to Kumasi. Kumasi is the second biggest city in Ghana, and that explains what this history has produced in terms of people's outlook of their orientation and people's outlook to place. Now, that consciousness is all over the continent, and it has raised a way of thinking about the world that valorizes travel and exploration. So in Ghana, for example, there's the notion of a bintu, which is called to be a burger. It's an aspirational thing. Among the Hausa-speaking people of West Africa, there's the notion of chinrani, which is both an indication of a particular structure of livelihood, but also an orientation to the world. Now, this reality gave birth to political communities that are multi-ethnic, multilingual, and therefore do not neatly fit into the understandings of our state, which is that each person has to be from a particular territory, and that territory is fused to tribal orientation. Now, this political community is largely driven by the activities of women and young people. Women who trade across Port Harcourt all the way to Dakar, passing through Seme, passing through Hilakonji, and passing through Ghana. In the process, they fill a void that the state had created with the introduction of structural adjustment program and the rolling back of social services. They do not only fill an economic void, but they also question an enduring legacy which colonialism has bequeathed to us, the idea that identity is strongly tied to notions of origins and tribes. that actually identity is a becoming, that people can become something as they move, as they show commitment to a particular place, but also as they live in those places. Finally, I thought it would also be important to go back to history and look at the ways in which this sub-region has been imagined by movements that were interested in liberation, but also in the future of the continent post-liberation. So there was something called the West African National Secretariat, with people like Kwame Nkrumah, but also Wright Williams of Sierra Leone, and Bankole Akpata of Nigeria put in place. And one of the things that they exhorted people to do at that time is to think of West Africa as one country, think of West Africa as a place, and therefore unite on the basis of that. And finally, I thought I would end with this quote by Julius Nyerere, which in a sense places the question in the sub-region, but raises it to the questions around continental integration. And Julius Nyerere was speaking about African nationalism, where he says African nationalism is meaningless, anachronistic, and even dangerous if it is not at the same time Pan-Africanism. So the question is it possible to think of a regional integration which begins from what people have been doing through this connection that ordinary people have been carving out, one that allows the state to think of democratization from where people are as opposed to a top-down approach? Thank you very much.
You, Dr. Faisal Garba Mohammed, you actually had two finalists. You had one finally, and then you had another one. And I'm happy that finally your 3 minutes, you used them very well. Thank you very much indeed. We're going further to invite more supporting debaters. Ambassador El Kazim Wane, right, and Dr. Penda Diallo, to address the question that can there be regional integration without an institutional base and without a core economic base? Let me invite Ambassador Wane to the podium. He's looking at the experience of the African Union. Ambassador El Kazim Wane would take a view that you require an institutional-based regional integration, which invariably serves as a driver for maintaining an economic base. Thank you very much, Prof. And like we said earlier, we have 3 minutes. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. I just start by making a precision and take it out of my 3 minutes. I'm not an ambassador, but I was appointed by FUNMI. But anyway, I accept it. Now, I would like really to bring a short historical perspective to our debate on institutional base and economic integration. And this will make it possible to anchor our debate in the overall trajectory of the OAU-AU. When you go back to the founding of the OAU, in May 1963 in Addis Ababa, the central debate was between those who advocated for immediate continental unity, Nkrumah, and few other leaders, and those who felt that we needed to be more realistic and proceed through, in a gradual fashion, building on sub-regional and regional groupings. And the background, of course, were the divisions that pre-existed to the establishment of the OAU, with the existence of groupings based on linguistic and ideological considerations, which were seen as being an impediment to African unity. The issue was resolved in Dakar in August 1963. It was the first first ordinary session of the OAU Council of Ministers, and a resolution was adopted that recommended that for regional groupings to be compatible with the OAU, they have to focus on economic, social, technical, and scientific issues, and leave political matters to the OAU. Now, what happened thereafter, and this is my key point, is that from the outset, the OAU chose to foster economic integration through regional and sub-regional groupings. The only issue that was controversial was the political role of those regional and sub-regional groupings, which, as I said earlier, was resolved in Dakar, even though the reality was a bit messier. Now, bringing this to our thematic question,
In my view, an institutional base matters. You can't just rely on market forces or popular drives to foster economic integration. You need the institutional machinery to provide rules, to provide the capacity to mobilize resources and sustain coherence, and also you need just basic rules for things to work. And when you look at the continental architecture, the African Continental Free Trade Area, and the Abuja Treaty, they are all based on this gradual process based on regional groupings. Now, and this is critical, we should recognize that if and when African integration is fully achieved, regional groupings may become redundant. In fact, even our states may become, less salient. That's the point. Now, in that sense, the institutional base is transitional. It underpins integration, but as we move forward in integration, it becomes less important. In short, building a strong regional economic integration requires a strong institutional base. But the ultimate goal is economic prosperity. It's not creating just one more bureaucracy. The question before us, therefore, is whether our institutions allow us to build that economic base. And for the AU, economic base and economic integration and institutional base go hand in hand. Thank you. I have rested my case.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'll still call you Prof, because that's what I have here, and you do look like one. Thank you, Prof, for your contribution. So basically, Prof said that we require an institutional-based regional integration, which invariably serves as a driver for maintaining an economic base. Thank you once again, Prof. Right, so I'll bring up now Dr. Penda Diallo, Associate African Leadership Center. You're ready, don't worry. Your time will start counting when I leave. All right. And her argument basically will be that the perspective of West African people in rural communities, particularly in mining communities, who provide the basis for facilitating and accumulating the economic base for regional integration. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as I welcome to the podium Dr. Penda Diallo, Associate African Leadership Center. Now your time starts.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I want to thank the ALC, ECOWAS, and all the institutions that have hosted us here today. So my question, my response will be framed around three questions, which for me are questions that are uncomfortable, but we need to think about if we want to create an ECOWAS of the people. So the first question is that, how do we speak of integration when the majority of our people live in rural areas? This is over 220 million who are excluded from the debates we are having, because these debates, policies, and frameworks happen in languages that most of them don't speak. They are in French, in English, in Portuguese. And these people are excluded from this. The second is why does it take me about 10 hours to fly from Conakry to Abuja, which is 2,329 kilometers. Yet it takes me about 6 hours, a direct flight, to fly from Conakry to Paris, which is 4,613 kilometers. What does this tell us? How can we integrate if we cannot have direct connections between ourselves, between our key capital cities? Another question I have is that we all know that West Africa has one of the largest world reserves of minerals. Guinea alone has 30% of the world reserves of bauxite, one of the largest reserves of of bauxite and iron ore. So, but other countries in West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Niger, have uranium, gold, tin, and many other minerals, all of these which are important for what the world is calling the transition to the green energy. Without this transition cannot happen. Yet our rural communities where these are extracted have no clean water, no infrastructures, no schools. And this is not just a problem of one country. I think it's an ECOWAS problem we need to think about. And second, the majority of our youth are unemployed. We see high unemployment across the ECOWAS region. We are educating young people, telling them that they will have jobs in the mining sector, but the majority of the mining sector will be moving towards automation, the use of AI, and artificial intelligence. In places like Chile, you have driverless trucks going around in mine sites. Yet our universities are not teaching students these type of technologies that will equip them for the future. So which means that the unemployment will increase. So I see three paradoxes. The first is the connection paradox. So if we are not connected to each other, we cannot talk about integration. If it's easier to travel to our colonial powers than amongst each other. The second is the resource paradox that we have. And another, yes, so for the next 50 years of ECOWAS, what I see is that there is an African proverb that says it is not wrong to go back for what you forgot. So we've forgotten over 220 million people. And these are the people who are really showing us through integration, like my colleague said earlier. They are the women, the young people who are traveling behind trucks, who are doing business between Accra, Abuja, Lagos, Mali, and all of that. So what I want to say is that these local communities who don't sit in ECOWAS meetings, who are excluded from the formal systems, are the ones who are showing us what true integration looks like. And we need to include them for a future, for an ECOWAS of the people. Thank you. So, yes.
Wow. Thank you so very much, Dr. Penda Diallo, for that, your contribution. So I picked a few nuggets. She said, how do we talk about integration where majority of our people live in rural areas? Why we must also look at having direct connections between our major cities. So basically, in summary, Dr. Penda Diallo argued that, excuse me, please. Sorry for that break in transmission. She argued that from the perspective of West African people in rural communities, particularly in mining communities, who provide the basis for facilitating and accumulating the economic base for regional integration. I want to thank all our debaters, our lead debaters, our supporting debaters for their deep contribution. May I ask us all to put our hands together for them one more time. Now the debate is open. The floor is open. We have a list. Earlier we announced that anybody who wanted to speak should put down their names, so I have a list already. But if after I call the names here, there are about 11 of them, you want to say something, please raise your hand and names will be taken, right? Okay, right away. If you want to say something, please indicate with the raise of your hand. So they get down your name so I can call you, and then you have your 1 minute to make your contribution. All interviewers will need to go to closet's mic set at the back, right? There is one on each side. This includes the one on your initial list. So if you want to speak, there are mics there. If you, can we signify where the mics are? Right. Great. So the debate is open now, and our contributors have just a minute. May I quickly remind us that if you're coming for this 1 minute contribution, you You will not address questions to any of the prior speakers. Rather, you contribute to the debate by offering a new fact in 1 minute, by supporting or opposing a position that has been articulated with clear reasons for doing so in 1 minute, or you offer a new perspective on the key issues raised in the debate so far. Please do not forget that you have just 1 minute to articulate your thought. Right, so let's dive right into it as I invite General Martin Aguayi respectfully for his 1 minute contribution. He's there already. Put your hands together for General Martin Aguayi.
Thank you very much. I just want to, having heard all this, I remember my few months or years in Sierra Leone and Liberia. And how would we have heard what I heard in Sierra Leone? War done. The war is over. Who brought it to that level? The Economic Community of West Africa. We brought soldiers, officers from Nigeria, Ghana, across the whole of West Africa, and we got support from other parts of the world. And without an organized body, without a thing called ECOWAS, I do not know how it would have happened. Could we have had people in Sierra Leone with short sleeve or long sleeve? Those who understand what I'm saying, cutting people's arms, short sleeve or long sleeve. How could you have been solved? So I think, yes, there are challenges. Yes, there are issues of security, issue of economy and illiteracy and ignorance. But we need an organization that will pull us together to use all our resources together to stand, and it can only be done by a state that forms itself together to form a regional body that can help the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. General Martin Aguayi, you used your 1 minute very well, and your point is well taken. Let me also invite Fatou Bintou Salah, who will give his or her contribution in 1 minute. After that, Wakeje Hamawo, please stand by for your contribution. Put your hands together for Fatou Bintou Salah. Let's make it louder, please. Thank you. Can Wakeje Hamawo and Ibrahima Kane just stand by so they can take the mic after her? Right.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Fatou Bintou Salah. As you've rightly said, I'm from the Gambia. The question before us, which is our regional organizations, a necessity for regional integration in Africa, is not abstract. For me, coming from the Gambia, it's very personal. For lack of time, I'll give a very practical example. When our constitutional order was threatened in 2016, after former President Jammeh rejected the election results, it was ECOWAS, under its protocol on democracy and good governance, that intervened. ECOWAS deployed economic peace forces, led mediation, and ensured a peaceful transfer of power to an elected government, which we still have. That decisive regional action prevented bloodshed and safeguarded our democracy. And that same solidarity continues. In 2024, ECOWAS approved a hybrid tribunal with the Gambia to prosecute Jammeh-era atrocities, a landmark for regional justice. For small states like ours, the Gambia, regional organizations aren't just abstract institutions. They are lifelines. They give us solidarity, legal recourse, and collective strength. Regionalism for Africa isn't just diplomacy. It's really survival. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatou. Wakeje Hamawo, thank you. You have the floor now.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Wakeje Hamawo from Togo. I'm a former ALC fellow. I'm of the opinion that regional organizations are not necessary for regional integration. As Dr. Titi Lope articulated so eloquently earlier, they stifle progress, and this integration has always historically existed naturally, led by the people. My reflection is more about the fact that in 2025, it feels like what is needed is a greater integration at a continental level. As a young African woman, what motivates me are mechanisms like the African Continental Free Trade Agreement area, or the promises of the AU's Agenda 2063. Quite frankly, I'm unsure of how ECOWAS influences my daily life personally, because at this stage, when I travel from Togo to Ghana, I'm still asked way too many questions at the border, and it feels like it's at the discretion of the officer in front of me rather than the law. In 2025, we are seeing a greater cultural integration of the continent as a whole. African pop music and creativity are taking up so much space on the global stage. And guess what the kids are listening to? We're listening to Afro piano, which is the love child of Afrobeats from West Africa and Amapiano from Southern Africa. And so I question the relevancy in this increasingly global world of these regional institutions. And for the past few years, during Deti December, we see that Ghana waives visas for anyone of African descent. This has greatly stimulated their tourism industry, and it shows that it is possible if we want to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Okeji. Hamao. Ibrahim Kane. Is he here? All right, so let's go to Ruth Ogbewekon. So I asked that you move here, so that's why I'm calling you well ahead of time.
Can I?
So, yeah, excellent, thank you.
I will be speaking in French because I'm not an Anglophone.
Oui, monsieur, oui, oui.
Right. Hello.
One of the questions and issues I would like to bring up here is, in ECOWAS today, we said it has been very innovative. It has to do with the regional citizenship concept. We established this in 1982, and the regional body gave it an effective meaning.
Are you done? The mic, right? I wish you had made it to this point, because that mic is spotless. Let's make it very quickly, sir, monsieur. Ruth Egbewe Kon Eka Ike, Dr. Carlos Cardoso. Please stand by at this aisle so we don't waste a lot of time trying to get you to your microphones. Oui, monsieur.
Merci, madame.
Thank you. I said that one of ECOWAS' inventions since its establishment was the regional citizenship concept that helps us to address issues of diversity peculiar to this region. But this principle since 1982 did not make any progress, while in other areas they adopted the citizenship concept and gave it an effective context. It will be good that in the context of this celebration to consider strengthening this idea of citizenship and to help ECOWAS citizens to interact more frequently and more effectively with institutions in the region. It is not only the ECOWAS Community Court of Justice that should help people when they are not happy with the activities of the organization to express their views. There should be some other complex mechanisms where they can speak out and make other institutions of the region hear their voices. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. That's how far I can go. Right, Ruth Egbewekon, is she there? Right, and then after her, Eka Ikpe, and then Dr. Carlos Cardoso. You have the floor now, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ruth Ogbewekan, representing the Pan-African Lawyers Union, PALU. I would like to thank all the debaters and just blanket statement that I agree that regional institutions are essential for regional integration. Very quickly citing African philosophy, Ubuntu, I am because we are. And this is not, regional communities and regional institutions is not a foreign construct to the continent. In fact, it is a characteristic of African political organization and African political behavior. And with all due respect to the debaters, I think that diminishing the importance of this institution is an antithesis to Pan-Africanism. I would also, at the same time, like to validate some of the arguments that were raised against regional institutions, and just to say that what I am hearing is a critical analysis of the institutions that we have and an identification of ways to strengthen the gaps and challenges that we have. And just to conclude by saying that there's a Swahili saying, Sisi ndio tuko, that means we are the ones who are here, and so ECOWAS is the institution that we have at the moment, and there is a ripe opportunity to strengthen these gaps and to work towards regional integration with the institutions that we have and in a way that works perfectly for West Africa's people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Eka Ipe.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you to all the contributors. Some very powerful points were made. I'm going to agree that regional institutions or frameworks are essential for regional integration, and even beyond that, regional integration is essential for Africa's liberation. This is the reason why the Organization for African Unity, the African Union, ECOWAS, were actually established. And I think more than ever, in the moment in which we're existing today, with the travails of multipolarity, just thinking of 2025 this year, what we're hearing from the global north economies, how they are contending with the more nationalist approaches, it's going to be very difficult for any country in the African continent to negotiate with that system on an individual basis. This has to be done collectively. I think what we've heard, though, today is agreement on all fronts, that there is utility of these regional frameworks and institutions in some form, that there has been historically, there could be going forward. And I think that is the purpose of this moment. What is demanded of ECOWAS today, in this moment? We heard about those who have been left out of this regional agenda so far.
Thank you.
So what can be done to address that right now? Thanks.
Thank you so very much. Eka, agreement, she said there's been agreement on all fronts, and I do agree with her. Dr. Carlos Cardoso, please, you have the mic. After him, Haja Saramba Kande, and Antonia, is that what I have here? Mbro, say that? Antoinette, Mbro. Yeah? All right. Cardoso.
I believe that the institutions, the regional institutions and organizations are extremely important for the regional integration. But I believe that our state must work on a mechanism to monitor the decisions that are taken, and these decisions are very important to ensure the regional integration. When we observe the borders between Guinea-Bissau and Senegal, for example, we might see several irregularities that are performed by the authorities. They do not facilitate the circulation. If I have a diplomatic passport and I shall not pay any penny to cross the borders, but when I see my auntie with a common passport and she doesn't have the means, she doesn't have any franc to pay what they are requiring, this is very heartbreaking. And this is related with the control mechanism that we are applying at the borders in our region. Thank you.
So, for your contribution, let's invite Haja Sarambe Kande to take the mic. After her, then Antoinette Mbro, then Dr. Akibode Fashaki, and then Dr. Fatima Akilu, in that order.
Thank you to all the contributors. I am from Sierra Leone, and I lived through the civil war in Sierra Leone. When the international community and the world turned its backs against us, it was ECOWAS that stepped up. So yes, I believe ECOWAS, regional organizations like ECOWAS are not only a necessity, they're indispensable. Because how else, which other mechanism could ensure our shared security? I mean, we're talking of integration, but there is no integration without peace. And I believe ECOWAS has demonstrated that you need a mechanism in place to intervene. Let's admit it has faltered. I know now I think the interest of leaders has taken over the people's interest. We see that in ECOWAS court judgments. We see that in the positions that they've been giving to leaders who flaunt our constitutions. So yes, I think the question really shouldn't be whether ECOWAS is a necessity, but how do we strengthen institutions like ECOWAS to deliver for the people, rather than doing away with them.
Haja Sarambe Kandida from Sierra Leone. Antoine Mbro.
Merci, Madame.
Dorian.
Thank you. My name is Antoine Brot from Togo. I represent Will Daff for West Africa. Thank you for the contributions. I will go in the same vein with the position that the regional organizations are a necessity for regional integration in Africa. I must say that regional integration in Africa cannot be achieved without strong institutions like ECOWAS. You will agree with me that these organizations have many roles to play, which includes economic roles, political roles, security roles. So many examples were shared here. Taking the example of the security role ECOWAS plays, I will remind you of what was done in Liberia and what was done in Sierra Leone, for example. Of course, I agree with you that there are still many challenges, and one of the challenges has to do with lack of cohesion. We also have the slow implementation of decisions. We also have mistrust from some people. Despite these challenges, I can assure you that ECOWAS remains indispensable. Finally, without a regional organization that is strong and works in solidarity, African integration will just be an ideal, but it's supposed to be a reality that will be experienced by West Africans. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much indeed. All right, Dr. Akimbode Fashaki and then Dr. Fatima Akilu. Yeah. Your mic is not on. 1 minute, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very nice to listen to all the interesting conversations and debate. I'll begin with a small story. 3 generations of mothers, every time they cut the head of their fish to fry their fish, and the 3rd generation, the child of the 3rd mother, asked the mother, why do you always cut the head of the fish? She says, well, my mom used to do it like that. And so it traced it back to the 1st generation, and the mother said, I used to cut the head of my fish because the frying pan I have is so small. What am I trying to say? Institutions are made by man, by humans. Humans make institutions. Institutions don't make human beings. I'm taking a central position. I'm not saying for or against. We need institutions, but they must serve us. We see that existing institutions, state, regional organizations, they have been instruments in the hands of a few, and this is quite problematic. People will always find outlets to speak, to engage, to interact, to express themselves, and they have done so. We know about the informal economy. It controls more than 70% of the economy in West Africa. It employs more than 70% of the working class. in West Africa. How can we make regional organizations more effective is what we should think about. Cut off all the bureaucracy, reduce the corruption, and ensure that it works in the interest of people. As I started, institutions don't make humans, humans make institutions. We must think about how to make them more effective. Thank you.
Thank you. That was spot on. Dr. Akimbode Fashaki, institutions don't make people. Yeah, brilliant. Dr. Fatima Akilu. Dr. Fatima Akilu.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I see it as really two ends of a bridge, a hard end and a soft end, a top-down and a bottom-up approach, history on one side and modernity. But perhaps we should be looking at that liminal space in between the bridge. That can actually represent a vulnerability or a strength. We've heard from both sides and what each side can do better. It's true, regional bodies can do large infrastructure projects, they can do economic, social, security integration, and that is their job. On the other hand, we see people, communities that are so much better at balancing their diversity, they're so much better in terms of integration of values and really meeting. So I think that from what I've heard, we must, to meet the moment, we must actually bring these two sides together because no one side can do it by itself.
Thank you very much. Dr. Fatima Akilu, we must bring the two sides together. Brilliant submission there. So I have a list here of people who raised their hands, and we already have a list, and unfortunately it's closed. The first person I'd like to invite is Dr. Atahiru Jega, Nigeria's no-nonsense professor turned democracy referee. The man who brought chalkboard discipline to ballot boxes. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Atahiru Jega to the microphone.
Thank you so very much for this opportunity. I would like to say that to answer this question, it's important that we understand our lived reality, which is that we live in modern nation states. And modern nation states have certain defined characteristics. The first one is that they are territorially defined, and that's why they have borders, and these borders are regulated. The second is that they have citizenships. We all belong in one or the other of these territorially defined countries. And of course, the third issue is that these territorially defined countries have what they call sovereignty. So when you look at this, it is very, very clear that if you want some form of integration across these countries, you need a regional organization to help facilitate and catalyze and coordinate the attainment of the objectives of integration. So the question really is not whether regional organizations are important or necessary for integration. I think what we need to say is that they are necessary, but they are not sufficient for integration in our sub-region or continentally. So what we need to do is how to strengthen the regional organizations and also how to explore the other things that we may also need to do in order to complement the work of regional organizations for desirable regional integration? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Tahiru Jega, for your contribution. We must understand our lived reality. We all belong to territories defined by countries, and each country has its own sovereignty. So regional organization is needed for the purpose of integration. Thank you. Brilliant as always. Let me invite General Faye to the microphone, and Aleida Borges, right? So you take the microphone after General Faye. Thank you. Yeah, you can use that if it works. But yeah, merci beaucoup. No, it's not working, sir. General Faye on his way to the microphone. After that, we take Aleida Georges, then Ambassador Shehu Abdullahi and Professor Chris Isike in that particular order. Please make your way to the microphone so we save time. Oui.
Please allow me to reformulate the question that is being posed to us. What kind of regional organization, with what mandates, and what type of governance? And the Prof touched a bit on that earlier on. Since we are not supposed to ask questions, let me give you my answer. Bottom-up integration does exist already. You have the cross-border trade, intra-African migration without any formal framework. This is already some sort of de facto integration. In other words, what we need is to develop the lines of integration that have been defined by ECOWAS and the African Union by putting emphasis on infrastructure. At the independence, we have the Dakar-Niger train. 60 years later, if we had Dakar-Niger highway, it will have sorted out a lot of problems. Those are some of the actions that we need to undertake. We will be able to do a lot in terms of inter-African transport that is posing a problem. It is also very important that ECOWAS should start brainstorming on how to secure the integration routes. If you have the highways, you need to make sure they are secure. These are a few things I want to say. Thank you.
General Faye. Right, Aleida Georges, you have 1 minute to make your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, so my name is Aleida Borges, and I'm based at the Africa Leadership Center. So I'm going to agree that regional integration is essential for the present and future of Africa, and I'm a big fan of regional integration. But as we sit here celebrating 50 years of ECOWAS, we in Cabo Verde are celebrating 50 years of independence, so we are still trying to figure out who we are after 500 years of Portuguese dominance. We are one of the smallest and least populated countries in ECOWAS. And so for us, sometimes ECOWAS feels like a club of English and French-speaking countries led by the giant of Africa, Nigeria. So I believe actually that there are only 2 Portuguese-speaking individuals here at this meeting. So it's not very clear for such a small country with a small population, with our own problems of regional integration, trying to connect 10 islands, what ECOWAS has to offer to us. So that is the observation I wanted to leave with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. We have Ambassador Shehu Abdullahi. Can you please take the mic? Okay, it's over there. Thank you, sir. And after him, we have Professor Chris Isike to take his contribution. In 1 minute, sir. Thank you.
Bonjour, madame.
Good afternoon, madam. Thank you so much.
sorry, who took my list? Can you try again? Let's see if it's okay now.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Babakar Mba is my name. Ambassador Mba is my name. Let me say that Africa, and in particular our region, it's been mobilized so that multilateralism would prevail in issues that we are of interest to us on the international scene. And in that mobilization, if we want to be effective and credible at the same time, we need to be exemplary in the way we handle ourselves. Integration is one of the ways of showing solidarity amongst ourselves. This is for me to say that integration is indispensable if we want to be indispensable on the international scene in our struggle to make sure that multilateralism will prevail. So this is my own contribution to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Well, I was saying that the two positions have been canvassed with passion, but I could see that Dr. Ajayi wanted us to abolish the state and create an anarchy, because Dr. Afolabi has drawn your attention to the Westphalian arrangement. We can therefore build consensus around the wisdom expressed by Professor Abdullahi Batili. That organizations are important, but there are challenges. Those challenges that Dr. Ajayi identified were not created by the institutions, they were created by other actors. So the first step is to recognize the important role of non-state actors and create a space for them. Once we create a space for them, they can now fit into the consensus that have been proposed by Professor Batili. Thank you very much.
Yeah, to the microphone. He's there, Ambassador. Oh, sorry about that. After him, we will take Ifeanyi Okechukwu, Clement Sefa Nyako, Professor Aziz Olaniyo, Dr. Hakeem Jamil, Professor Kehinde Olayode, in that particular order. Say that again. Sorry. Say that again. Okay, yeah, yeah. Prof, please go ahead.
Thank you. So, regional groupings are key to integration, in my view. But to make ECOWAS indispensable, it must pivot from signing protocols to enforcing performance. ECOWAS has the treaties for free movement, but its internal trade is still choked by bottlenecks, and as you have heard, it has massive border delays. The problem isn't a lack of rules, it's a lack of operational machinery to back those rules up. ECOWAS could look to my part of the world, East Africa, and the Northern Corridor on how this can be done. The Northern Corridor success wasn't built on another summit or on another corridor meeting. It was built on two things. One, dedicated management, and two, data-driven accountability. Northern Corridor established a permanent secretariat focused solely on logistics and burdened by broader politics, and crucially, they use a performance monitoring system to publicly track border clearance times, which forces national customs and police agencies to meet regional targets. And this has dramatically cut transit times for thousands of trucks traveling between Kenya's port of Mombasa and the hinterland And I think that ECOWAS could benefit from this type of model in terms of showing it values people.
Thank you.
Lastly, just one tiny point. It could also be move away from just policies and dedicate these management agencies so that a corridor like Lagos-Abidjan is actually funded. There's data to prove its efficiency and efficacy and show tangible profit to the people of West Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So I skipped Professor Chris Isike earlier, so you have the mic now and you have 1 minute. Let's do this.
All right, thank you very much. So for questions like this, I normally would go to a reading of pre-colonial African history. And based on that reading, I would support both motions. I would say that both motions are correct. And this point has been articulated by Dr. Akilu and Professor Jega already, but I came out just because they didn't see the reasons why they are supporting both motions. And it's simply that this is not new. Integration has always taken place in Africa, pre-colonialism, based on institutions, deep-rooted institutions and cultures and norms that facilitated that. And they were both state and people-driven. And if you want to understand, ECOWAS has always existed in the Mande Kingdom in Mali, the Ashanti Kingdom in Ghana, Yoruba Kingdom, the Great Zimbabwe, right? All of these are state structures, unions of states, but they were both state and people-driven. So let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's simply go back to how we used to do it and we'll get it right.
Thank you, Professor Sike. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Yeah. Is that Ifeanyi Okechukwu?
Yes, please.
Excellent.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, speakers, as well. I think I will support the position of the regional integration and regional institutions working hand in hand. A house that is leaking does not suggest that we should discountenance issues around house. Shelter is important to us. We shouldn't deny that shelter is important, is not important because a house is leaking. Why I say this is because when you look at the modern society, and I think Professor Jega also talked about that, the interdependency of modern society, the relationship between the state and society is key. And then also the globalization process, the way that our societies and states are shaped, requires that states work together and also find ways of regulating themselves as well. And the only way you could do this is also to have some kind of a multilateral operation. And multilateral operation only can be possible only when you have some kind of regional institution, regional mechanism, call it whatever you want. But in our own understanding, it's reflected in the way that ECOWAS works. So for us to be able to exist, to progress, to develop, to address issues that we have that seems to overlap within our society, you need regional organizations to work.
Thank you, Ifeanyi Okechukwu. We need a multilateral operation through regional institutions. That's brilliant there. Clement Seifa Nyako, then Professor Aziz Olaniyo, Dr. Hakeem Jamiu, Professor Kehinde Olayode, yeah, in that particular order.
Okay, thank you. Really good questions there. And I'm really conflicted whether regional integration is necessary, because on the one hand, we have regional organizations like, I'm conflicted whether regional organizations are necessary for regional integration. I guess that's the point. Because on the one hand, we have regional bodies like ECOWAS, SADC that are doing great things, but like Penda and others have said, cannot be seen in the lives of ordinary people. And so the question is, to what extent is do we see those are necessary for regional integration when we want the whole of Africa to be integrated rather than bits and pieces of elites integrating and sitting around tables here? But also on the other hand, there are a few communities that do not form neatly into the countries as we have, so that if you say countries should form regional integration, it will be almost impossible. And I have a few of those in the gray areas in mind, like stateless people, people who are on the fringes and margins of society, who don't even have passport or don't identify with any country, not because of any doing of theirs, but because of things of war and mobilities and things that just put people in the middle there. We also have some communities like the sometimes LGBT communities and others who don't often have their interests represented nicely by countries. And so we want to see where those, so I guess my final point is that I'm conflicted, and either way there has to be a way that the interests of those at the margins are considered. Thanks.
Okay, so Clement is conflicted. Well, Professor Aziz Olanio.
Thank you very much. Okay, yeah. The problems facing humanity are actually supranational, that is, beyond the powers of each state. So for this problem to be resolved, the states must come together, mobilize the citizens to achieve the goal. And you cannot do this without the kind of platform. And that is why regional organizations are very, very important. So you can see that ECOWAS have been responding to some of the challenges, such as migration, human trafficking, drug issue, corruption, poverty, conflict, etc. So in addressing these issues by ECOWAS, some problems have also emerged. Like the case of ECOWAS protocol on migration, it has allowed some nefarious elements to cross borders. So, but the solution to that is not to abolish the regional organizations. And to me, the best way is to strengthen these organizations so as to address the problems that keep emerging. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So,